I'm Shane Collins, or Councillor Shane Collins, one of the directors of the Green Gathering and a Green Party District Councillor in Frome in Somerset. So shortly to come is Jamie Kelsey-Fry from the New Internationalist, who will be hosting the session. And so we have Rob Scully on my right from ZAP Concepts, and Marine Sabot, good morning, from Green Runthrough in Paris. So I'm going to start off just 7 or 8 minutes of just going through where we are on climate change at the moment, because the science has been changing quite a bit, and we have a sort of a carbon budget with which we can admit to have a reasonable chance of keeping below 2 degrees centigrade. So I'll just whiz through. Yeah, this is the first one. Okay, so just a very quick run through 1880 to 2006, and you can see that carbon dioxide and temperature are pretty closely aligned. One thing to remember is that the temperature is not even. It's not an even increase. At the moment, we're about 1.2 degree increase on average throughout the world. So in some parts, it's 3, 4, 5 degrees, and indeed you may have noticed last week in the Arctic it was something like 20 degrees centigrade hotter than normal for that time of year. Obviously in the Arctic now there's no sun at all, but it is heating up quite considerably, and the weather patterns are getting very muddled up. You can see the red spots is where it's sort of 3, 4, 5 degrees centigrade warmer than the average. 10 hottest years, I think you probably all know this, it's happening. So where are we now? We're climate tribes. Which climate tribe are we in? There's sort of 4 rough groups: the denialists, that's the sort of old-time Southern American Christian, God formed it all 6,000 years ago, science is flawed. Fairly rare breed these days in Britain. They're definitely still around in the States. Climate skeptics, so agree with the science but suggest that climate susceptibility is low, the impacts are small, and we can grow our way out of it. Lord Lawson is sort of one of the prime proponents of that here. It's don't worry, so long as we keep going with good domestic economic growth, then we can buy our way out of any future problems. Then there's the incrementalists. The science is correct, climate change is important, but carbon dioxide pricing, offsetting, negative emissions technology, NETs, which is a really important thing to remember at the moment, NETs and BECS. BECS, negative emissions technology, is basically the idea that we can invent some magic technology that will suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, which means that we can carry on polluting in the meantime. And BECS is biomass energy and carbon capture and storage, which is basically chop down lots of trees, grow lots of trees, burn them for energy, and then try and capture the carbon dioxide as the trees are being burnt. Carbon capture and storage, which, rather than fusion, has been around for decades and is always just around the corner and just around the corner. And there is only one working example of carbon capture and storage at the moment. A small power station in Canada, which is having quite a few problems in itself. And incrementally, so the main thing is that we can carry on within the current economic political paradigm. So incrementalists, this is most politicians, most people in the country, policy advisors, all these sort of people. We can just carry on, but we've got to be a bit careful and invent some technology in the future that will solve all our problems. Then the last group is the sort of realists, the radicals. Science is correct, climate change is important, but keeping to below 2 degrees centigrade is incompatible with having an economy based on growth of domestic product. Okay, climate change means system change. Whether it's a positive change to the system or whether it's a negative change to the system is up to us. But it's based on the fact that we can't continue with our current system and have any hope really of keeping below 2 degrees centigrade, and the 1.5 degrees centigrade will be very likely blown. So IPCC report 1990, which I think for a lot of people changed their lives, the writing was on the wall. We need a 60% cut of greenhouse gases on 1990 levels to have a reasonable chance of avoiding 2 degrees centigrade. So here we are 27 years later, we have a 60% increase on 1990 levels. So the sort of business as usual projection now, according to IPCC, was about a 4 to 6 degree temperature rise by 2100. So we have sort of at the moment chosen to fail, really. We've taken 27 years. Jamie, good morning. We've taken 27 years to avoid the question. And intergenerational and international fairness, what are we leaving for the next few generations? It's not a very good prospect. So Paris, the big COP in Paris, there were some pretty good words there. You know, it was heralded as a great success. There was lots of good words on paper, keeping well below 2 degrees centigrade, pursue 1.5, use the best science, basis of equity and efforts to eradicate poverty, which is important, using equity as a basis to sort climate change out. The pledges still only add up to about 3 or 4 degrees centigrade by the turn of the century. So we're definitely not there yet. And that just gives you an idea of the business as usual and with the Paris pledges. So why 2 degrees is such an important level? I mean, in a way it's just a temperature that's been picked out by scientists. But we know that about 2 degrees, the Greenland ice sheet starts to melt, and that's about 6 or 7 meters of sea level rise in there. Even now at 1.2 degrees, we're seeing big changes around the world. Now, civilization doesn't just break down like that because of climate change. It's a gradual, ongoing process. But if you ask people in Florida, where 40% of the houses got wiped out in a recent hurricane, if you ask people in Portugal and Spain and California with rampant forest fires, climate change really has started to happen for quite a lot of people. And then there's obviously 160 million people in Bangladesh and the Ganges Delta with a small sea level rise will affect them hugely. If we're going above 2 degrees, 3 degrees, Amazon starts to turn to desert, decline of the Gulf Stream, 4 degrees, which would be an average temperature, so that would mean 10, 12 degrees in some areas, and in particular, our grain growing areas of the world, central parts of the United States, central Europe, central Russia, there are grain baskets of the world. So if they stop producing grain, we're looking at about a 30-40% food drop. Okay, and with the continuing increasing population, 7.5 billion at the moment, those figures just don't stack up. 30-40% food drop and a gradually increasing population. So various sort of positive feedback loops. So we've got 2 big problem areas: the carbon dioxide from general industrial processes, domestic heating, whatever, and then the wild card is methane hydrates. So methane hydrates are bits of methane gas that are kept on the sea floor underneath the sea as a clathrate, as a hydrate, which basically keeps the methane stable. But as the temperature of the ocean bottom warms up, the methane is released from its hydrate state and bubbles up as a gas. And obviously methane is an incredibly powerful greenhouse gas. And all these sort of feedback loops, from the forest fires you get soot on the ice sheets, which means they don't reflect the heat, so they reflect the sun's heat, so they melt quicker. As the ice sheets go, the water surface is darker, so more heat's taken in. It's harder to put a timeline on methane hydrates because we don't really know nearly so much about them. The one good thing that came out of Paris was a carbon budget, this idea that we have a certain amount of budget of carbon dioxide that we can emit to try and keep below a sort of reasonable chance of keeping below 2 degrees centigrade. doesn't really matter when we emit it, but if we cut the emissions quicker, it will be easier later. But we've got a carbon budget around about 800 billion tonnes of CO2 or equivalent to emit. We know that if we go over that, there's a pretty big chance of going over 2 degrees centigrade. So if we do it gradually, about 10% cuts per year, we know that we've got to try and get to globally by 2050 zero emissions. And that means that industrialised countries like Britain, we've got to take into account past emissions that developing world develop a little. We've got to be looking at zero emissions by 2035. Okay, how does your business plan work in with that? Zero emissions by 2025. And incrementally 35% cut by 2020, 50% by 2025. It seems quite undoable, especially as politically it's gone completely off the boil. Brexit has taken over political discourse for the last year, and it looks like it will do again. We have an absolute existential crisis. But this budget does mean that if we just fly off for another foreign holiday, it means we're depriving either our children of doing that in the future or people in developing worlds to develop at the moment. So why is there no panic? Why aren't we all out in the streets? It's because of nets and BECS and various other rabbits that have been pulled out of the hats by policy advisors. Carbon offsetting, carbon trading, all these sort of negative emissions technologies that enable the policymakers to say to politicians, carry on as you are, don't frighten the population, we'll all can earn more, consume more, and it'll all be fine. But most of, if not all, of the IPCC reports on climate change include nets and BECS within their predictions. So if you strip them out, that's where the sort of 4 to 6 degrees centigrade rise by the end of the century is coming in. There's various other geoengineering that may be useful, but these are add-ons. Carbon capture and storage, these are add-ons. These are great if they come through, but we mustn't depend on them. We have to get emissions down. And who is consuming it? Well, it's the top 10% of the world that produces about 50% of the CO2 emissions, and it's the second 10%, that produce about 19% of the emissions. So the top 20% of the world are producing about 70% of the emissions. So there is where we need to target our campaigning and our politics. And the top 20% of the world's population, come to our festivals. They are us. It is us. We are the problem. It is no point trying to push it off onto the developing world, saying they're increasing their population, China's consuming more, all these sort of things. It is the top 10% in particular wherein the problem lies, and that's generally us in the mirror. So we need to basically move to electricity. We can electrify stuff and use renewable power to do so. Oh my God, this is the diagram of doom. So I'd really recommend a website called Arctic News Blogspot. It has the best ocean physicists and climatologists who deal with the Arctic. Sorry, what's the time? 10:45. 10:45. Okay. So these are all the feedback effects. This is just the horrible warning. Because if we're getting further along 3, 4, 5, 6 degrees centigrade, human life becomes inhabitable in most places. Most cities are ports, and they will be flooded, and there will be increasingly small areas of the world that are fit for human habitation in the sort of northern climes, northern Canada, these sort of areas. I'd really recommend Professor Kevin Anderson of the Tyndale Institute and University of Manchester, talk he did to the Cambridge Science Week of the Swedish Royal Academy, Arctic News, Blogspot I mentioned. Pretty much everything we do has a positive or negative effect on using up our carbon budget. So we've had 27 years of which it seems like we've consciously decided to fail. We have maybe another 10, 15 years to really cement that decision either way. So that's just a quick rundown of where we're at on climate change and why it is so absolutely vital for us as festival organisers, people who can put over cultural messages in a way that politicians can't, that we really focus on these facts. So I'm also going to now welcome Jamie back from Tube Chaos. And I think Rob is going to...
Am I?
Sorry,
Okay.
no, sorry.
Margot?
Yes, Marie, if you'd like to chat for a few minutes.
Yes.
10 minutes. Do you need to come up here? Do you need to come up here? Are you using
I'm
one
gonna
of
check my presentation.
Yeah, so there's just use the...
I don't know if you know, but I'm so sorry about being late, folks. Nightmare in Highbury and Islington. Shane's given us the graph of doom. Everyone's very, very aware of that. Everyone's very, very aware of how difficult it is for people to actually swallow this and feel like they can do anything about it. And obviously, we've got 3 people here talking about the way that festivals can use culture to get people to feel they are not powerless, and that in fact there is a great deal that we can do. So are we going to hear from Rob or Mary? Is it you next, yeah? So Mary Sabo, who is the founder of the Love Green Festival in Paris, a 60,000 people event that manages to be green, and you're going to be talking about how you've been able to do that.
Okay, everybody, nice to meet you. We, excuse me, I'm gonna take my glasses. Thank you. So, we have set up the We Love Green Festival in Paris since 6 years. It was a long adventure because the festival takes place in the wood around Paris. So this is the city-state places. So we have to deal with a lot of institutions. And as we are in the place where all the services of the city are working, we have to work with all that people. I mean the people of the wood, the garden, the waste, the water, the energy, and all the crew who are not used to deal with the change of our way of producing their own work in the services. So we have to learn all together how to change our way of producing, thinking, and training all the crew. So we try to design our event as a sustainable solution of event industry. And we are testing from 6 years a lot of solutions, and as you can imagine, we have success and fails regarding techniques and logistics, and we have learned all together. And because running a festival, as a lot of people know, it's building a city, and this city is always complicated to achieve with all the outside weather problem. And so it's sometimes quite complicated, but I'm going to try to give you just a quick view of what we are doing. So the festival now gather around 60,000 persons. We have a lot of we have tested a lot of different sort of energy. I will detail it after. And we are, we could say we are 100% renewable energy with different sorts of energy with a different solution. We have 5 stages, and 70% of our waste are recycled. We have we are music festival. It's the center of the festival, but we have artists, very different artists who are played in the festival. For example, the headliner of the next edition is Björk, and a guy from Migos, so very very different. Beck and Sampha, and and Georgia Smith. So we have very different music, electronic, folk, and a lot of artists. But in front of that, we have 6 main thematics where we can have a special program. So this is, of course, the sustainable development of the production. We have a crew who are dealing with other problem. The food. We have 50 restaurants in the festival, and all the food are chosen, and there is a training. We have a startup incubator. We have a special think tank conference stage. We have a art and scenography program, and we have a program of screening. So the Sustainable Development Program. So as I was saying, we are trying several type of generator. The generator we try to use last edition is a new French startup who is working with vegetable oil. So second, how can I say, second generation of biofuel. And it's quite complicated because the solution working well, and the most powerful area of the festival is the restaurant. The restaurant need a lot of energy, and we put this generator in the center of the whole food court restaurant, and it makes the link, because the oil of the restaurant, the network that we can find in France, in Paris, of the old restaurant, because as you know, you can't through your waste oil. So you have to collect your waste oil when you are a restaurant. There is a lot of network with this material, but in France, you don't have the right to use that oil as a fuel. So because the 4 minutes. So the taxes are not decided by the government. So we are now trying to buy oil in England. So you can see the long way to find a solution, because we have the power generator. We need to find solution for the tax, and we need the authorization of the Minister of the Finance and all the authorities. So it's a long way to do that. We use with a lot of UK solution with a solar panel with the different stages. And now, for the first time in the next edition, we will show hydrogen generator. So we will have several solutions, and we could have very interesting results to share. So, of course, the energy and the light are LED, and the stage plot are optimized, and we have a very big discussion with all the technical crew of the band, as you can imagine. We have phone charger. We have a big water refill point, and it's a long walk with the city of Paris to work with them, because we need to make the solution in the forest to have this tap water, and we give to the crew all the reusable bottle. Of course, we have a program of dry toilet all the festival, and it's working very well, and we recycle all the waste. And we try another solution, which is eco-toilet, which are recycle and very startup solution, which is quite interesting. If you want to have more detail, I will explain you. Of course, the waste management is really interesting. We compost all the dishes and for the restaurant, and we have made our own compost, and we have found a platform, and we have made a label with the compost, so the compost is now something you can sell it because it's has a value. We have made we thought the carbon footprint solution is not really fit with the problem of the festival, so we have created our own carbon calculator, which is quite easier for all the production manager in the festival, that they can have their own solution and have the detail of where they increase or optimize their solution between all the years. We have a charter, of course. We have a big conference stage, which is bigger and bigger every year. A lot of people are coming from everywhere in the world to talk on the things on stage and in the big stage also. And you have different person who can share their action all around the world. We have a startup incubator where we can see all the solution that you can find in the little startup in Paris. And we have a big program of workshop of scenography with all the school. It's making sense with the first presentation. All the School of Student and Art and Design Architecture in Paris with the waste material, with a jury, which is a very pedagogical project, and with a solution. And we upcycle all the material. And regarding the food is more, the charter is more detailed year by year, because we have a map right in France where, and all around Paris, where the restaurant could buy their food, and they now have the should write where the food come from, and the season of even if all the vegetables and the fish, and you can understand the season of each product and where they come from in front of how much they cost. And next thing, when you buy your tickets, you can share donation to the NGO. This is our program, and we do it little by little. Thank you.
Mary Sabo. This is our last expert, Rob Scully, for 2 decades. He has been providing clean energy, green solutions to festivals. Rob, do you want to, you're going to be standing up using that? Okay, great.
I don't like standing behind a desk, so I'm going to be standing up and wandering around, sorry. Some of you in the room know me already. I work for ZAP Concepts. The main thing we do is looking at energy on festivals. I'll talk for a couple of minutes about that, but I've bored a lot of you with this already. And then I have something else to say. So going back to the start of the panel, we had the introduction to what our impact is meaning for the climate of the entire world, and also the fact that if festivals and events can influence culture, can influence what people actually do in their daily lives, which can also influence the climate, the global climate. Now, that applies to the audience. It also applies to the organisers, and this is my area of work, really. I work with organisers to try and get them to appreciate what the actual impact of their own event is, and lead by example. So with the ZAP Concepts work, we work on working on temporary power solutions for events. So we don't provide the power. We work with whoever is currently providing the power for the festival, which is usually from diesel generators. You saw from Marie that there are alternatives, but at the moment they're still used on a relatively small scale on festivals such as Wheel of Green, where it's a stated aim that this is what they want to do. Our approach is that if you're using diesel generators, there's a very easy way that you can make a difference to your climate impact, and that is to use less diesel. So we work directly with the organisers to try and match their power requirements, the requirements of the stages, of the restaurants, of everything on site, more closely to what diesel generators are being provided and how much fuel is being used. And we usually can achieve reductions of 30 to 40% of the volume of diesel that's used, which makes a huge difference in the carbon footprint and the climate footprint of the event. And it's basically just about having more accurate information and specifying equipment better. So that's one side of it, the energy side of it. But also, what's been in the news a lot at the moment is about throwing things away, about throwing away coffee cups, throwing away disposable single-use plastics. And this also has a carbon impact. It's not just about rubbish, it's not just about things floating in the sea, although that is important. So I'm going to give you a few facts. So these aren't my facts. These are gleaned from a study that was done by Eventbrite, and they trawled through lots of other studies to get these figures, and also their own figures from events that they promote tickets for. So 85 million event attendees every year. So that's every type of event, not just our festivals, but conferences, meetings, sporting events, country fairs, corporate meetings, closed meetings, public meetings, everything. More than 7,000 major outdoor events. British music events on their own. More than 27 million people came to them in 2015, probably higher now. Now, the majority of food and drink at these events is served in disposable containers. So if you get a drink at the bar, it's in a throwaway cup. If you get a cup of coffee, it's in a throwaway cup. If you get some food, it's in a disposable container. So for every serving of food or drink at all of these events, with these tens of millions of people, something is being produced and then thrown away immediately afterwards. So how does that affect what we're talking about in this session, the global climate change issue? So there is an impact, a climate impact, from making all this stuff. So 90% of the climate impact of this stuff is in the making of it, it's in the manufacture of it. So in a way, I don't care if you recycle it or compost it afterwards, the impact has already been made. 90% of the impact has already been made by making the thing in the first place and then throwing it away straight after you use it. So this is the problem for us as event organisers. We have to deal with all this waste. We have to stop the items that are being thrown away from escaping into the environment. There's litter ending up in the sea, ending up on the land. If we want to recycle them or compost them, we have to keep them separate, because as soon as you start mixing all the waste together, it becomes too difficult to separate. So some of it might get recycled, a lot of it won't. And there's also the environmental impact of carting all that waste around. And the stuff that you can't recycle or compost, you're landfilling it or you're incinerating it. And you might recover some energy from the incineration process, but really that is the last step of recovery before it's on a par with landfill. So I'm just going to use an example that most of us in this room are probably familiar with, which is the disposable plastic cups that you get on bars. So you've got a simple flow diagram here. It's a linear process. You make a disposable plastic cup, you use it once you manufacture it, you deliver it to the bar, somebody buys a drink at the bar, you use it once, and then you throw it away. After it's been thrown away, sometimes it's captured in a collection system, and then it's recycled. Depending on what material it is, depends what it gets recycled into. I can pretty much guarantee it won't be recycled into another cup. Polypropylene will be recycled into things like coat hangers and household plastic items, maybe even plastic furniture if you've got enough of it. PET, which is the most common one, can be recycled into other cups, but mainly it's recycled at the moment into fleece, into polyester clothing. And it can be used in recycled packaging as well, but again, you have to keep it separate. The rest of it is going to go either to landfill or to incineration, and you recover a little bit of energy from it. So I expect most people in this room are familiar with reusable plastic hard cups. So instead of having throwaway cups on your bar, you have sturdy cups that can be reused over and over again, and so you don't throw them away at all. So this is a circular process. So you use the cup, you wash it, you use it again, you wash it, and this can go on hundreds and hundreds of times. And also it's a closed system, so the cups keep coming back to you, so you know they're going to be recycled because they don't get put in the bin. So when they come back to you and they're looking a bit tatty, you can then send them for recycling. And again, they're usually recycled into other plastic products, not into cups, again, because they have every time you recycle plastic, it tends to degrade. And at the start of the session today, we saw EnviroCup, who I'm a great fan of. I worked with them when they introduced their cup to Glastonbury. And this is, if you use a cup like this, it's a completely closed-loop system. So you have a stainless steel cup. The stainless steel cup is made, the EnviroCup ones are made from recycled steel. They're not made from virgin materials. You use it, you wash it, you use it, you wash it, ad infinitum, basically forever. And then if it does get damaged, you can recycle it straight back into another cup. So some people we talk to as organisers think this is a bit of an expensive solution. You want to use a reusable cup, you buy the cups. Well, let's first of all look at the impact of that decision. So this is the climate impact of that decision. This is a measurement of climate change gases from manufacture and use of those cups. So every disposable cup you use has an impact each time. Every time you reuse a reusable cup, its impact diminishes really compared to the number of times it's been used. So after 2 uses, using a reusable cup is better for the climate than using a disposable cup, and that's irrespective of whether you recycle that disposable cup or not. And this is the interesting bit, because this is something that I was quite surprised about. This is the cost. So the main problem that organisers have with this kind of system is they say it's too expensive. So have a look at that. What you have there is, to start with, the reusable cups are much more expensive at ground zero. You know, the plastic cup is about 40p wholesale price if you buy it. The stainless steel cup is around £3 wholesale price if you buy it. And in this graph, the disposable cup is only 4p. And I've included in that the cost of recycling it afterwards as well. But once you get past 10, or less than 10 in some cases, uses, it's actually cheaper to use reusable. So at about 5 or 6 uses, it's cheaper for a reusable plastic hard cup. At about 8 or 9 uses, it's cheaper for a stainless steel hard cup. And when you get to 75 uses, look how much you're paying for your disposables. You're getting on for £4 for your disposables, and your reusables, because they've been reused so many times, their cost has been written off many times over already. You're paying about 7 pence a use just for washing them. So I've said some of this already. So a cup reused only twice has already used less than half the impact of using 2 disposable cups. Each cup reused 75 times is worth £3.95 in saved manufacturing and disposal costs. And the bit at the bottom, I'll finish with this. This is what study of some figures we got from Green Goblet, who do the washing and logistics and supply reusable plastic cups and the steel cups from EnviroCup. So they have about 2 million cups in regular use, and they reckon they get used about 15 times a year on different events. So we worked out 1 million cups displaces at least 15 million disposable cups. That avoids 300 tons of waste, which is equivalent to the weight of 167 transit vans. And those 300 tons of waste, the manufacture of those 15 million cups and their disposal costs normally 1,300 tons of climate change gases, which is equivalent in the same amount of emissions as the energy requirement of an average house for 100 years, or the equivalent to taking 255 average family cars off the road for a year. So all of this information we're actually putting into a fact sheet which is being produced by ZAP Concepts and Hope Solutions, and a partner of ours. And we're going to be putting that out in the next week or so. And we're also going to be doing another one on the energy question, which I spent a couple of minutes with at the start. But that's me.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
I mean, everyone knows about the added entertainment of those renewable cups, of course, like at Green Gathering, when you have the cider cups. You have to watch out for the roving gangs of children who will rob those cups as soon as you put them down. And the more cider you've drunk, the slower you are at grabbing them back off them. We have only about 6 minutes, so please use this time not to make any statements, but to ask questions of our 3 experts here. We're going to have time probably to get about 3 or 4 questions in. So who would like to start?
Nobody. Excellent.
Okay, this gentleman, if you want to ask this question, and then I'll get a question from you, and then we can answer them both. Okay?
Probably mostly to Rob. Do you know how big a part of the general festival waste that are actually cups compared to the rest of the waste?
That's a good question. In terms of weight, it's probably not the largest fraction. Off the top of my head, I can't give you figures, no. But one of the things I didn't mention is that I've used cups as an example, because that's something that everyone in this room is familiar with, and a lot of people in this room already use. But one of the things the point I was trying to make is about changing culture in the organisation of festivals. So I think it's entirely possible, with a small change in culture, for us to have reusable eating serveware as well. This is normal if you go into a restaurant or a cafe. Just because it's in a field, it has some logistical problems, but those logistical problems can be solved. This industry is full of people who love solving logistical problems and technical problems. And what I think we should be moving away from is technological new products where this product is really recyclable, or this product will break down really quickly in a compost system. Just stop making it. Stop making so much of it, and so then to answer your question, that means that the bulk of the waste will be removed, because the bulk of the waste is packaging.
Hi, there's a question for Marie. I wondered if you could tell us a bit more about the toilets you mentioned, the EcoSet.
If you didn't hear that question, it's more details from Marie about the toilets that she was describing.
So, I'm going to explain. These toilets are something to learn. It's separate poo and urine, because to show you that urine is something that you have extract and you have a excuse my English, that you have is this solution. At the end of the process, you can have little bag of something which is dry, and you have to learn that it's not toxic, but it's a nutriment for the soil. And so you change your mind regarding this way of what is waste and what is first material. So it's something to show you how it could be toilets, not for only for event, but also for building in the future. This is the point of this toilet in the festival. And it's making with solar panel to the container, with the container, and so it's a new solution.
Sounds amazing.
There's a question over here.
Yeah, it's just around the issue of like single-use plastic and festivals being events where I think people get outside of their normal kind of day-to-day living and kind of try and find a bit of individual freedom. Why do festivals want to cater so much for, you know, I mean, basically, it's very easy to kind of basically tell food vendors, you know, we as a festival will kind of put basically that you're not allowed to bring any plastic on site whatsoever, and that give the responsibility to the people at the festival to wash their own cutlery, like set up washing stations. I mean, I think the responsibility should be entirely on the festival participants, and I think festivals are being made way too easy. Essentially, it's like most of them are camping holidays anyway, and people should bring their own forks, plates, cups, and there should just be washing stations. And I'm just interested in why festival events don't, you know, just simplify and run festivals like that.
We certainly at the Green Gathering, the busiest cafe, which is the Crew Cafe, which is doing about 600 or 700 meals a day, that is all on proper cutlery, proper plates. People bring their own plates and we supply them, and then they're washed. And just go back to the earlier question, using stack cups in the bars, one of the main things it means is not only are the bars always clean, which is just amazing at a festival bar to see no litter on the floor, but it does save us another skip in landfill costs. Originally, we planned that I would also talk a little bit about the Green Gathering, but we haven't really got enough time. But Em Weirdigan, one of the other directors of the Green Gathering, and Steve Muggs are here, so do chat to us afterwards. We got the Greener Festival Award, so there's a sort of implementation of all that we've done. But yeah, no, and I think, you know, we are getting closer and closer to saying to cafes, you must bring your own plates. At the moment, we've got groups going round, Crock and Rock it's called, of basically giving people proper plates and then washing them up to try and get down the amount of paper plates.
And I think there will be innovative solutions to this as well if you say it has to happen. So the way the Green Gathering does it is one way, and that's aimed at a particular audience who most of whom are quite receptive to that. Other people aren't so receptive, but you just have to make it easy for people. You have to put the right solution in for your audience, but basically the solution needs to have the end result of having less throwaway packaging.
Folks, unfortunately, it's 11:20. I thought we were finishing at 11:20. Yeah, okay. But look, these three amazing experts are here all day, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah? Marie, are you here all day? Well, there you go. You can pick their brains over the course of the day. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. See you later on. Cheers.